All right, so I'm here today with Tijo. He's well known in the crypto currency community, blockchain community. He's been around for a long time. Him and I have been Facebook friends for a couple of years, but this is actually the first time we've spoken person to person. How are you doing today, sir?
Uh, Mr. Breyer, I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be on your show. I've been actually trying out a new dress wear. I'm not normally a big suit fan, but today I figured I should put the suit on. We had an interview and podcast with Trace Mayer earlier this morning, so just trying to keep it in line. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing very well today. You're looking rather dapper for the Epic Blockchain podcast and show. That's how we have come to know each other a little bit better. We'll get into that a little bit more here, but yeah, I'm doing well. So we'll just jump right into it. How about you want to give a little bit of background about yourself, where your origins are, or were, and what got you interested in the freedom cause in cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so a lot of this story we can probably date back to some of the first times I ever saw the internet come online. One of the reasons why I became kind of a libertarian. Not that I want to bear the banner of the Libertarian Party by any means, but just some of the things that sent me down this line of research, interest in economic freedoms and free markets. Is when I was a young kid. I remember the first few times the internet came online, I started researching on the internet how we've basically been contractually sold to our governments via our birth certificates and the corporation, and we're basically used as bonds or treasury notes for the paying back of the future. Essentially, what do you call it? The debt bonds, basically that are used. But it's very. I don't want to get into it too much because it's actually a fairly complicated subject. The point of this is when I was around the ages of 13 to 14, researching all this information sent me hitchhiking and dropping out of school. So I actually dropped out of school in grade 9, right about a year or two after I started doing this research when the internet first started coming online. And I started just hitchhiking around, playing music, and actually studying, oddly enough, with psychedelic plants, things like psychedelic mushrooms. One of the reasons why I think this is an important part of the story is I think that there's a lot of information that can be learned from nature itself. I think that in effect, some of the visions that nature shares with us, and it's one of the reasons why I live out in the middle of the jungle. I mean, it doesn't necessarily look like it right now with the suit on. I look like I'm somewhere much more posh than I am. But I'm actually in the middle of the Costa Rican jungle. I've got my own private well. I've got a small farm here. So my entry into what I would consider the freedom of the economics of freedom and abundance came into account through my relationship and understanding with nature. And from there, I was able to develop a better understanding of capitalism. So when I was younger, I actually had a very sour taste in my mouth from capitalism, but mostly because I didn't understand some of it. Nowadays, to me, it's very obvious that you are rewarded for providing value and service to other people. It seems like such an easy continuation of an idea to be like, oh, look, I'm going to do something valuable for people, and then they're going to reward me for it. I don't even have to ask them to reward me for it. And we see this actually very plainly and clearly, I think, in the social media space right now, is that most of what you should be doing is giving away content for free, and then providing your community with as much value as humanly possible. And then from there, if you're doing something good, they're going to want to support you, and they will continue to do so. So I guess what I'm alluding to is that some of these early steps into learning about the internet and becoming an entrepreneur and focusing on things that were valuable to other people, I actually ended up stumbling into Bitcoin around 2011 and then again in 2012. So the first time I bought Bitcoin was around $90. We just bought 2 of them. We needed them to do some business with one of the companies we were buying stuff off of. Because back in the day, it was like PayPal was still new to some degree. It wasn't always the easiest way to go. And these guys were like, hey, PayPal. So we went to a Canadian exchange. We bought some Bitcoin to help pay for our servers. And I didn't think about it much after that until about a year or two later when Bitcoin was up at $1,000. And I actually did the first FOMO stupid move I've ever done in the market. And I bought right at the top. And I watched it come crashing down all the way to $200. But what I learned in that process was a massive amount about, I guess, fundamentals, technical analysis. I started to be more interested in some of the ways to enter and exit a market. At that time, I was also acquiring stocks in some of the marijuana companies coming out of Canada. I was also buying far out of the money puts and options I thought the markets were going to crash in 2014, 2015. So I had some experience with buying and selling and getting more accustomed to it, so that when Bitcoin started to break up past $400 to $600 again, I started screaming at everybody I know in the jungle to buy Bitcoin. And I realized that screaming at people is not a very effective way to communicate something. So I started Arcane Bear. In March of 2017, I decided that I wanted to talk about pineapples and Bitcoin, essentially. So if you look at some of the very first videos we have on the Arcane Bear channel, I'm talking about, we grow ayahuasca on the property here, which is one of the psychedelic plants containing DMT, very strong visual plant. And so my very first videos on Arcane Bear are actually about plants. And then very quickly I started to talk about Bitcoin and blockchain because, again, for me, the underlying premise here is that, are we communicating natural value? Because I believe wealth is mostly a concept and a vision. It's not just your pocketbook. It's a relationship of the way you view yourself, the way you view the world around you. So the Arcane Bear over the last 2 years has become this fantastic community of people that a lot of the times are way the hell nicer than I am. I often make fun of how the fact that I'm probably the meanest person in the community. But I have great guests on the show. We've had podcast speakers from Bruce Lipton to Trace Mayer this morning. And really what we try to do is just go down that line of how can we communicate more value to more people? And that's been a very successful line of business that we, since we started. I think it's one of the reasons why, okay, so I guess I can lead us into the next part of the conversation, but I'll leave it at that.
You've definitely been very successful building your brand up. I've seen the maturation of it, over the last few years for sure.
Thank you. I had no idea what I was getting into when I started this. One of the core reasons I started the Arcane Bear is because I feel that there's a problem in charity that we can fix by building reputable, positive impact brands. The charity space can't scale because you can't market or advertise, and you can't incentivize crazy people like me to stick around and work on the companies. So the Arcane Bear originally started from a vision, not just about Bitcoin, but about how do we make a difference in the world at scale? How do we communicate these values at scale? And so much of it is understanding the attention of other people. And although I will claim still at this moment to be fairly ignorant about what other people want and think, because a lot of the times all I'm doing is sharing my own opinion, and the people that resonate with that particular opinion are supportive of the community. But we definitely don't pander to any masses. But one of the reasons why I started this brand particularly is because I think there's a better way to do business. And I think a lot of it is just about storyboarding the ideas here that, there is a room for conscious or sacred capitalism. And I can definitely tell how this leads into the next question you're going to ask me, which is, how did I end up working with Epic or any of these blockchain companies?
Yeah, were you always interested in technology growing up? Did you say you were born in the United States, or I don't know if you want to get into that or not?
Oh yeah, I grew up in British Columbia, Canada.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that. Yeah, was technology always something you were interested in, you'd say?
Not necessarily. I was always taking things apart when I was younger. But I've been much more interested in the concept of something rather than the technical applications. So for instance, one of the reasons I've been really enjoying Nassim Taleb's books lately, Fooled by Randomness. And one of the things he mentions is I don't use math to solve like math problems. I use math to solve conceptual problems. And I think often people are very much so overlooking the conceptual and the philosophical values behind the technology. And that's really what interested me about Bitcoin. So the first time, I heard about Bitcoin in the blockchain space, like what got me into this area of technology was I was living in a remote village in a country called Guatemala. It's just north of where we are in Costa Rica here, just south of the United States, then Mexico, and then Guatemala. And I actually found a Bitcoin postcard on the ground in 2011 or 12. And the idea of consumer choice in the world of money was so valuable as a concept to itself, right? Most of the times when you're born in a country, you're forced to pick what you want to use. Yet I can wear a pair of Ray-Bans or Dragons, and the government has no say in whether I do that or not. I think, and what I felt was super valuable, regardless of the technology, was consumer choice in the financial world. Whether it was at small scale or at the global scale, I think that the importance of competition and the underlying fundamental principles of asking ourselves, what's the question, like, what is decentralization? Not just in technology, but as a wave that's taking place in human consciousness. You know, think about the human body, for instance. It's made up of trillions of cells, right? None of them know that they're a part of me, yet they are all collaborating to become Tijo, right? Mm-hmm. So this decentralized nature of reality actually exists in everything that we do. The world itself almost functions like a type of complex blockchain, right? Just from a conceptual level. If we put iron and carbon through a specific change and it rusts with oxidization, this memory of the universe actually builds on top of the complexity of previous forms of the elements that brought it to that state. And you can't really reverse those things. There's no me reversing the polishing of a rock through time in a river. So the concept of some of this stuff is what interested me the most. It's not about how the tech works from a written perspective. It's about the vision and the philosophical aspects, because I believe that what we're doing wrong most of the time is externalizing the world. What we have right now will never be fixed by a technical solution, but we can help each other come to a better understanding with through the process with technology. But it's 100% about the human in like dialogue, the human species having a dialogue. The technology might ease that dialogue, but unless we figure out how to do that from a base level, the technology will do nothing for us. I mean, it's very likely that something like blockchain could go down the wrong direction, and you could end up with tyrannical governments and tyrannical money again at a much higher degree of tyranny than we see today.
That's why it's so important we get into the decentralized projects, you know.
And why people like, so for me, I'm not the type of person who would normally do this. I generally like to spend my time sitting out in the grass playing music. Putting on a suit is not my first choice of wardrobe. I actually just like to sit outside in my shorts or like naked and play guitar. Like, I don't really care. But this is such an important time to become a part of the conversation, because if we are scripting our new forms of government and new forms of money, if weirdos like me don't stand up and have a voice in this space, the people that are closer to nature, the people that should be in power, the ones that don't want it, like, I don't want any power to help, like, but there's a way that we can do this right now where we can bring and basically drop ship ready-made governments for either disaster relief or for countries that don't have that infrastructure, where the infrastructure has failed or degrading. So this is a very important time that I felt that I used my particular skill sets and used my voice to try to express the conceptual aspects that I feel. Now, a lot of people overlook that, but this is why I've stayed in this sector, and why I continue to show up and work here, is because it's not about the money for me. This is this could become very dangerous technology as well. So I think it's almost like our duty to consciousness itself to try to make sure that we're nurturing the things that are growing. Because if we don't, the things that are growing could just end up taking over by all the weeds, and we lose all the good fruits and flowers that we had in that garden to begin with.
I especially like the way you put you can go get a pair of Ray-Bans or whatever. We have all these goods that we can choose from in the free market, but money wasn't one of those goods before. Money should be one of those goods just like anything else. So I think that was really enlightening the way you put that. We kind of went off, but what got you into Epic? When did you join the Epic team? What drew you into the project?
Okay, so Mr. Freeman and myself have been friends for the last year, and this again is going to be a little bit of a circle of a conversation. But one of the things I'm trying to do, not always successfully, one of the things I'm trying to do with business is ask myself the question, what is good company? And generally, for me, the answer that I keep coming to the conclusion of is good companies are the people that I enjoy hanging out with. We can both further each other's goals and propositions in life. And then at the end of the day, I'm actually concerned about them. That when I show up, how are you doing? The first things I try to ask of questions of people, like when we have podcast guests, I try to grab what what's going on with your family, how's business, well, secondarily, how's business, and then how are you doing? Like, what's going on in your life? And straight, very, very personal about the way I interact with people. So Mr. Freeman and I had met under the same dialogue, that my interest isn't about monetary reimbursement for the things that I do, although I hold that as a banner of utmost importance, because if you're wasting my time and you're not paying me, I have no idea why you're here. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing anywhere near me then, is what I've been starting to realize. If this isn't about furthering the development of these goals and vision, just get out of my way, because it's not valuable to anyone at that point. And anyways, so the point of this is, although I believe capitalism and incentivization is absolutely necessary to conduct business, I'm generally interested in a very personal level about what's happening with people. Whether people recognize that or not is entirely up to them. But the point of this is that conversation, which started when I was in Sri Lanka. I had been going to visit orphanages at that time. We're doing small scale rough sketches about just giving back to the community, and how as a brand and as a company that has marketing budgets, I can do this every month. And it's part of our brand now. Not that we do it every month. It's actually a lot to coordinate, and we're hiring team members to help with alleviate this stuff. But anyways, the point of this, those early day conversations are what basically aligned us, because my interest here is in the vision and the heart of the mission statement. And I don't care. I will argue with people whether I think they're following that direction or not. I will never be a maximalist in any idea, because as soon as you are married to an idea like this, you've failed in the scientific world. I have no conclusive thesis on what is right or wrong. I think there are massive amounts of variables that need to be taken into account. So to bring us up to speed with today, the relationship that Mr. Freeman and I have about the work that I do with Epic is mostly about maintaining the vision of and the purity of the philosophical and the conceptual aspects that are going on, as far as I can tell, because I don't know jack shit about technology. Even though I've spent my days taking apart computers and amplifiers in the past, I'm just happy my computer and phone turn on. What I'm good at deciphering from the code is the conceptual and the visionary value and how it applies to humanity at scale for the next 20 years. And that through, this skill set for me comes from the fact that I've spent a lot of time practicing with psychedelic plants, going into the unknown and perceiving things that are very difficult to try to comprehend. And I'm not saying that I will be the first to tell you that I do not know a whole lot about anything, but there are a few skill sets where I have practiced more than the average individual. And this particularly unusual skill set, which in this case, if I were to dumb it down, would be marketing, branding, and visionary business. That's only make 4 things, but that's essentially what our conversations with Epic has become. There is the ability right now to take a company and bring it to an area in the world to build something and see massive development in what this technology can do. Now, Bitcoin has already fallen out of the hands of the many. Already. There's nobody in Africa that's thinking to himself, oh, I'm going to go buy a Bitcoin. It's not in their reach. It's left them already. And when I first joined this space, it was about the fact that we could empower everybody through decentralization. Not that just Bitcoin, but that the possibility through building distributed, open source, decentralized technology, and more so the import of the mindset that it really drives that. Decentralization exists way before technology showed up, right? There's a great Andy Warhol quote, and this actually comes down to part of the manufacturing world as well, which is that that you're drinking the same Coca-Cola that the Queen drinks. The Queen does not get a better Coca-Cola. Jeff Bezos's cell phone is not better than your cell phone by all that much. Distribution and decentralization puts what used to only be in the hands of the few into the hands of the many. And it is not just about one brand. It is not just about one maximalist idea. It is about understanding the anti-fragile nature of the competitive behavior that exists in the universe as it is. And although I know what I'm saying probably sounds a little woo-woo or hippie, this is what...
I think it makes perfect sense. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think it makes perfect sense because like you said, Bitcoin's really fallen out of the hands of the people that need it the most. And if we're going to spread free markets, like that's why I got into this space as well. The idea that we could spread free markets to the places that need free markets most, and then we can rise everyone up together. It doesn't have to be segmented or whatever into different partitioned off. So you know what I mean? If that makes sense. So I think I agree. I understand exactly what you're trying to say. Yeah.
So my relationship, and I actually have, there's another relationship I have that's kind of similar with another blockchain company that's done quite well over the last few months. They've done a 300% increase. Normally, I would never try to stand close to or even let alone put my name on or near a company because it's my personal accountability and brand. But at this particular scale and with energy as well, they've asked, I know I won't go too far because some of it's under NDA, but there's the ability for us to do a lot of infrastructure and community development stuff that I'm highly interested in. And it has very little to do with me. It has a lot more to do with other people. They will do most of the work. They're the people already doing that work in the ground of their countries. We're just there to try to help empower them further into what they're trying to do. So whether any of these ideas are successes or failures, the end result of everything is that it's a success, because there's a lot that can be learned from doing and building ideas like this that has very little to do, or very few people are taking into account right now, because I think what's important, if we're to look at the way Bitcoin has gone as a comparison with, let's say, and again, I think this is extremely important to use that Ray-Ban reference, because I think it really simplifies the choice of, okay, well, look, I have a choice between a DJI drone and a bunch of other drones, but DJI does the best job for their particular thing. So I will always buy DJI. There's a very strong likelihood in my mind that Bitcoin is going to take over a lot of the remittance structure layer and a lot of the other relationships that we see with local currencies, municipal governance, build out and impact situations are going to become more of the community choice. Because if Bitcoin has already left the hands of the many, how do we empower the many still? It's not through Bitcoin, it's through adapting and growing new visions that also interact and communicate with the other infrastructure that's there. Because there's a very high likelihood as well that we can get these technologies to communicate where there's a hell of a lot less friction and still benefits some, like Venezuela, for example. It would not necessarily be wise of Venezuela to invest in a bunch of Bitcoin mining infrastructure because they won't be able to keep up. Whereas if they were, I feel very strongly about the fact that if they were to invest in something like, let's stay relevant for right this second. Digibyte is a great proof of work token. They've got a great thing going for them. They've done a lot of infrastructure. I think they're highly undervalued in terms of how much build they had and how much build they have already done. It would be smarter in my mind for a country like Venezuela to try to adopt Digibyte at scale for their country, whether it's mining and using their currency, and just use Digibyte and be allowed to trade Digibyte for Bitcoin, maybe at a global remittance structure scale, right? So say Venezuela had to pay Turkey for some Turkish coffee import, I don't know, something random. It was $100 million. Yeah. They could trade through atomic swaps A token for B token, because the choice should be not governed by one group of people. This is why I think most people that are Bitcoin maximalists sound so out of touch with the philosophical concept about what we're talking about here and have gone into total la-la land. We need everyone to be able to make their choice voluntarily. If we tell them they have to use Bitcoin or this is the only way, we are failing at bearing our own banner and flag, and that is just truly ignorant to see. It's disgraceful that has happened to some of the talking heads in this space so easily. Anyways, so the point of my conjecture here is I believe there's actually a lot of room for people that are willing to take the initiative and spearhead campaigns and ideas like building with Venezuela potentially, or countries in Africa, because it's just so much we can do as visionaries, right? By being authentic. We don't have to look at Bitcoin or block as competition. We just look at how do we join the race with them. You don't have to be the #1 race car in the F1 team to be able to stand out if you know how to do something that's authentic, right? My friend managed an F1, helped manage an F1 race car team, and they knew they would never be number one because they were a new car to enter the race. Like the number 1 through 5 cars, they were already set to some degree. But number 15 or 20 is not that bad. You're in the race still. And what's important to note is that if you're very authentic about what you do, and this is what they did, is they would always look for the best race car drivers that were up and coming, and they would use the newbies that had no race experience. And they would put these drivers that were as best as some of the top race cars. So you'd see what was a number 15 car jump up into number 6 or 7, and then maybe they'd lose that racer to the number 1 car. But they kept that authentic advantage of being unique in the space for what they could do by operating the way no one else was operating. And that's what I believe is still on the table for many, many areas in this sector. Whether people want to recognize it or not, I don't really care. It's all risky. Like I said, it's a likelihood we fail at everything we do. There's a very strong probability the randomness of everything takes over and we go into some crazy climactic shift death spiral into who knows where. Like all we're trying to do is be optimistic about the future and build with the tools that we have and be aware of the fact that we know, like understand that we're on a ball of ice and rock and we could be destroyed tomorrow. So, okay, great, right? We know that there's the randomness in the universe. How do we prepare for that on the long term? And one of it is learning how to collaborate together. And until the crypto space learns how to collaborate together the same way Ray-Ban and Dragon and all the other sunglasses have learned to build the sunglasses niche, we're going to inevitably fail as a group. One of the bright sides now is I've actually seen more collaboration in this space since the bear market started than ever before, because the only people that were left are the ones that truly believe in building on the vision, or the people that are still stupid enough to have not lost all the money that they had because they didn't yet realize that they only got here through luck. So there's only 2 camps that are left right now. You have the people that are continuing to build because they believe in it, or the people that are just randomly still here that over the next few years won't be here no matter what they do.
I don't see you going away anytime soon in this space. I think you enjoy it. So lastly, I want to ask you where you think you'll be in the next 5 years and where you see Epic.
Well, I don't want to speculate too much. For me, my main focus is to keep the vision and the concept and the philosophy of these storyboards at the forefront. What I'm working on, what we're working on as a group, a team of individuals, is hoping to be able to move millions of people's attention into positive impact areas. What do I hope with Epic? The launch is coming up in a few days. I appreciate the development of technology, the infrastructure that's being put into the team, the layers of visionary, like to want to have someone like me on a team to mostly just focus on conceptual stuff, which is it's such a vague, like if I were to try to describe my work that I've ever done, it's impossible. It's almost all conceptual. It's like trying to explain Bitcoin's tangibility to people. Unless you understand the mathematics of how a blueprint is tangible before the building is there, you won't be able to make sense of it. So there's a lot of the stuff I do that's mostly intangible until later on down the road. I'm just here to help with infrastructure. So what do I see? Well, I see, look, no matter which way we go, this is it's not a good morning. The reason we need to do this right now is because shit's broken, and these are the solutions that we need to try to put into place to solve them. Whether we will be successful at them or not, I'm not going to choose to speculate, because I do know that failure is generally 80% of success. So you almost always fail more than you succeed. Like we should not be looking at entrepreneurs that, and this is a side topic, but you shouldn't be looking at an entrepreneur that's failed and be like, oh, look at you, haha. No, these are like war veterans. It's likely that you get shot, that you lose an arm. These are courageous individuals that are taking the brave approach to try to do something that no one else is willing to do. So whether we fail or whether we're successful, I'm not going to speculate right now, because we were just starting. But what I'm interested in is being there to be supportive and still carry the banner and the flags of why this stuff is so important to what I consider the human species at scale, and just be there to share that idea. So again, a lot of the stuff that's beyond me, the technical development, even some of the I have no idea. I have no idea where it can go. Like even with Bitcoin, when I first bought Bitcoin, I didn't buy it because I knew what the hell the technology could do at all. I bought in because of the concept, and to me, the value of the philosophy that I saw being resonated was enough for me to go, okay, I'm in. And that's why I'm here today too now. I'm here because I think there's enough velocity in the vision to do something. Whether that's true or not, we're going to find out, Mr. Breyer. We're about to find out whether that's true or not.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate your insights on this edition of Epic Talks. I hope we get to do it again sometime soon.
Yes, I will. For the next 5 years, I guess I'll lean out into the future. The growth of this space is going to continue. As long as you are paying attention and educating yourself about anything in these sectors, you're going to come out massively ahead of a good chunk of the world. I think it's a great time to be alive. It's one of the most, I'm going to be moving to Bali to go do some work out there with Arcane Bear. And like I was saying, some of the impact campaigns that we're working on, the ability to just have a conversation around the world. So I think one of the things I want to leave it off with is just everyone, please be grateful for what you already have. Life is very, very difficult on everybody, no matter how well you have not done in life. There is tragedy around the corners, and we're here, and the world is a better place when we support one another. And the more we do that, the better result we're going to have for everything that we're working on right now.
Well said. Well spoken, man. I appreciate your time, sir.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Breyer. We'll see you soon. Look, such an unusual day to see me in a suit. I look like everyone's gonna be like, Tijo, you sold out. Like,
you go to a board meeting after this, right?
I've been watching some Dan Pena, and
I like Dan Pena.
You look good in a suit. You might as well put a suit on every now and then. Maybe I should just leave this unbuttoned. There we go. I look a little less flamboyant when it's unbuttoned. There we go.
Well, I'll close this. I'll close this meeting, and I'll talk to you in a second. Thanks. I appreciate your time. I'm grateful for it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Have a good day.